There's an adjustment on yours. 75,000. Miranda from HR said it like she was reading my coffee order at Starbucks. Not apologetic, not concerned, just matter of fact, as if she was telling me they'd run out of oat milk. The words hung in the air of the glass conference room, sterile and cold as the recycled air conditioning. She was wearing a blazer that looked like it had been assembled by a committee that couldn't agree on a color, settling on something between gray and sadness. Her hair was pulled back, so tight it looked painful. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It didn't even reach her cheeks. Behind her, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the engineering floor. The celebration was in full swing. People were popping champagne, actual champagne, not the cheap stuff. Someone had wheeled in a cake shaped like our company logo, a sleek Z with a gradient that probably cost the bakery 3 tries to get right. Balloons, music playing from someone's Bluetooth speaker. The kind of unbridled joy you only see in tech companies, when the money flows and everyone forgets that half of them are one bad quarter away from a layoff. I sat there, laptop closed in front of me, hands flat on the mahogany conference table. The surface was so polished, I could see my reflection in it. I didn't ask why. I didn't demand an explanation. I didn't raise my voice or slam my fist or do any of the things that would feel satisfying in the moment and catastrophic 5 minutes later. After 14 years building financial systems in Silicon Valley, you learn something fundamental about power. The first person to lose their composure is the first person to lose the game. Panic is a luxury you can't afford when the numbers are your weapon and patience is your armor. I just looked at Miranda, then at the paper in front of me, then back at her. What they didn't know was that I'd already seen the file. What they didn't know was that I'd been watching this play out in real time, sitting on my couch the night before with a laptop and a glass of scotch, watching someone try to rob me in a spreadsheet. What they didn't know was that they were already caught. They just didn't know it yet. I'm Marcus Chen, Senior Financial Systems Architect at Zenith Software. It's a title that sounds like I designed spaceships for NASA. But really, I'm the person who makes sure the money goes where it's supposed to go. I build the rails that payroll runs on. I'm the plumber in the basement, while everyone else is upstairs taking credit for the house. My job, stripped down to its skeleton, is this: I make sure that when someone clicks approve on a $30 million vendor payment, the system doesn't accidentally send it to a fake shell company, registered in the Caymans. I build the checks. I build the balances. I build the audit trails that mean if someone tries to steal, we'll know exactly who touched what, when they touched it, and how much they tried to take. I'm the reason 2,300 employees get paid every other Friday without the system imploding, without someone in accounting accidentally sending Jeff's paycheck to Jennifer, without the IRS showing up 6 months later asking why our tax withholdings don't match our reported wages. For 14 years, I've been the invisible hand at Zenith Software. The 14th floor smells like cold brew coffee and the faint electrical hum of server racks running in the data closet down the hall. It's colder than the rest of the building because of all the hardware. The HVAC is set to 68 degrees year-round, which means I keep a hoodie draped over my chair even in August, while the product teams upstairs are building the next generation of cloud infrastructure, deploying machine learning models, and arguing about whether to use Kubernetes or stick with Docker Swarm, while the sales teams are closing 8-figure deals over steak dinners at places where the waiters wear ties. I'm down here in the guts of the operation. I'm the plumber, the person nobody thinks about until the pipes burst and someone's paycheck bounces. I know every line of code in our financial systems because I wrote most of them. The compensation module that calculates bonuses and equity grants. The expense tracking system that flags when someone tries to expense a $1,000 dinner for two as a client meeting. The vendor management platform that routes purchase orders through 3 levels of approval. The equity management system that tracks who owns, how many shares, and makes sure we don't accidentally dilute ourselves into oblivion during a funding round. All of it runs through systems I designed, tested, debugged, and deployed. And here's the thing about building systems. You build in logging. You build in version control. You build in the ability to see who touched what file, at what time, from what IP address, and what they changed. You build in accountability. Because in finance, everything is a paper trail. Everything is a timestamp. Everything leaves a fingerprint. And when you're the person who builds the system, you're the person who can see all the fingerprints. I didn't build this to spy on people. I built it because the SEC requires it, because our auditors require it, because when you're handling hundreds of millions of dollars a year, you need to be able to prove, down to the second, exactly what happened to every cent. But it also means I have access, complete access, to everything. Not because I'm trying to be sneaky, not because I'm paranoid, but because I'm the architect. I built the building. I know where all the doors are. I know which ones lock from the inside. And I know when someone opens a door they're not supposed to. Our compensation system is elegant in its complexity. Every employee has a profile, base salary, target bonus percentage, performance rating, equity grants. The system pulls data from HR, from performance reviews, from finance. It calculates everything automatically based on formulas I wrote 3 years ago. When bonus season hits, the system generates a file, 1 row per employee, their name, their department, their rating, their calculated bonus. The file lives in a shared folder with restricted access. Only 3 people can edit it: the CFO, because he signs off on the final numbers, my boss, because he manages the process, and me, because I built the system and need access to troubleshoot. The file has version history. Every time someone makes a change, the system logs it. Username, timestamp. What changed? Old value, new value. It's not optional. It's not something you can turn off. It's baked into the infrastructure because that's how you prevent fraud. But let me back up. Let me tell you about Derek Patel. Derek wasn't hired through the normal channels. Derek was installed. He floated into Zenith about 18 months ago on the tailwind of a private equity restructuring, carrying an MBA from Wharton and a confidence that seemed to have been purchased separately. He was 32 years old, 9 years out of undergrad, which meant he'd spent exactly 9 years in corporate finance, most of it at McKinsey and Bain, learning to say right-sizing instead of firing people, and operational efficiency instead of we're going to cut corners until something breaks. His title was Vice President of Financial Operations, a freshly minted role, a title designed to sound important without actually meaning anything specific. In practice, it meant he was now my boss. The previous VP, Helen, had been with Zenith for 16 years. She'd built the finance team from 3 people to 47. She knew every system, every process, every quirk in the budget. She was forced into early retirement 6 months before Derek arrived. Restructuring, they called it, making room for fresh perspectives. Derek called it bringing in someone who understands modern finance. He wore Tom Ford suits that cost more than my first car and fit him like they'd been assembled by people who'd never actually seen a human body. Too tight in the shoulders, too narrow in the chest, his hair was always perfectly styled with that carefully engineered, messy look that requires 15 minutes and $80 worth of product. He wore a Rolex Submariner, not because he dived, but because it was the watch you wore when you wanted people to know you had money. He smiled with too many teeth, like a shark that had taken a Dale Carnegie course. His first week, Derek called an all-hands for the finance department. 23 of us crammed into conference room C, which smelled like leftover bagels and the anxiety of people who'd already heard rumors about headcount reductions. Derek stood at the front, next to a projector, showing a slide that said, "Financial Operations, the Path Forward," in a font that screamed, "I paid a consultant $50,000 for this deck." "I've spent the last few days reviewing the org structure," Derek announced, pacing like he was delivering a TED Talk. "And I see a lot of redundancy, a lot of legacy processes that, frankly, in today's agile environment, represent friction points for operational velocity." Someone in the back, Janet from Accounts Payable, raised her hand. "What does that mean?" "Exactly." Derek's smile widened. "It means we're going to be running leaner, doing more with less, working smarter, not harder." Translation: he was going to cut headcount and tell the survivors it was a promotion. "We're going to streamline," Derek continued. "We're going to eliminate inefficiencies. We're going to position this team as a strategic partner to the business, not just a cost center." Someone asked about hiring plans. Derek laughed, actually laughed. "We're not in a growth phase for this department," he said. "We're in an optimization phase." Within 3 months, Derek had eliminated 4 positions: 2 junior analysts who'd been with the company less than a year, 1 mid-level manager who'd been there for 7, 1 senior accountant, Margaret, who'd been at Zenith for 19 years and knew the expense system better than I knew my own code. Each time, Derek positioned it as organizational optimization. Each time. He sent an email to the team explaining how this would allow us to operate more efficiently. Each time, the rest of us absorbed the work. I watched Margaret clean out her desk on a Friday afternoon. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just packed her photos, her coffee mug, the little succulent plant she'd kept alive for 3 years despite the fluorescent lighting. She looked at me as she left. "Watch yourself," she said quietly. "He's not done." I nodded. But here's the thing. Derek had a problem. Derek was ambitious, and Derek's ambition had a very specific shape. He wanted to be CFO before he turned 35. That gave him less than 3 years. To get there, he needed to show results. Specifically, he needed to show cost savings to the private equity board. And in Derek's world, cost savings meant 2 things: cutting people and finding creative ways to make the numbers look better than they were. I watched him. I didn't say much in meetings. I didn't challenge him publicly. I kept my head down, delivered my projects on time, answered his emails within an hour, and made sure the systems ran clean. But I watched. I saw how he'd massage the budget numbers before board presentations, how he'd shift expenses between quarters to make Q4 look better, how he'd reclassify capital expenditures as operating expenses to improve the EBITDA margin. None of it was illegal. All of it was aggressive. And all of it was designed to make Derek look like a financial wizard. I didn't report it. I didn't blow the whistle. Because aggressive accounting isn't the same as fraud. And more importantly, because I wanted to see how far he'd go. Now, before I tell you how Derek decided to steal $75,000 from my bonus and how that decision ended with him getting arrested in the office parking lot, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is the kind of slow-motion disaster that only occurs when someone who thinks they're the smartest person in the room forgets that the entire financial system has a black box recorder. And I'm the one who built it. I'm going to need witnesses for this. Thanks. Now, back to Derek, back to bonus season, back to the moment when ambition crossed the line into felony theft. Bonus season at Zenith happens in March. It's a religion. The entire company grinds to a halt for a week while the finance team finalizes the numbers. HR runs the approvals, and executive leadership pretends to agonize over who gets what percentage of the pool. This year, the bonuses were particularly good, record-breaking. Actually, Zenith had its best year ever. 42% revenue growth. 3 major acquisitions that expanded our product suite. Stock price up 68% from January to December. The company had blown past every financial target. The board authorized a bonus pool of $12 million to be distributed across the company based on performance tiers. Executives got 25 to 35% of base. Directors got 18 to 22%. Senior individual contributors like me got 15 to 20%, depending on performance rating. Everyone else got 8 to 12%. I was projected to get 18%. My salary was $230,000. 18% of that $41,400. Not life-changing money, but meaningful money. The kind of money that would fund a proper vacation for the first time in 3 years, plus the kitchen renovation my wife Emma had been planning since we bought the house. New countertops, new appliances, maybe one of those fancy refrigerators with the touchscreen that tells you when your milk is about to expire. The bonus file was created on March 1st. The CFO populated it with the initial numbers based on the approved pool and performance ratings. Then it sat in the shared folder, getting minor tweaks as HR flagged errors or managers lobbied for adjustments to their team's numbers. I had access because I'd built the compensation module. I needed to be able to see the file to test the system, to make sure the calculations were right, to verify that the integration between the HR database and the finance system was working correctly. But I didn't touch it. I just watched. On March 8th, at 11:47 p.m., I got a notification on my phone. I was at home, sitting on the couch with Emma, halfway through an episode of The Bear. The phone buzzed. I picked it up. Compensation 2024 final XLSX has been modified by DPTEL at zenithsoftware.com. I looked at the timestamp, 11:41 p.m. Derek was editing the bonus file. At 11:45, on a Thursday, I paused the show. "Work?" Emma asked. "Maybe," I said. "Give me a second." I grabbed my laptop from the kitchen counter, sat back down on the couch, logged into the system, pulled up the shared folder, opened the version history for the compensation file. There it was, modified 6 minutes ago. User, Derek Patel, IP address, one I didn't recognize, probably his home network. I downloaded both versions, the one from earlier that day and the one Derek had just saved. I opened them side by side, ran a diff comparison using a script I'd written years ago for exactly this purpose. 13 changes. 12 of them were minor, rounding errors, adjustments of a few $100s here and there. But the 13th change was on row 83, my row. Previous value, $41,400, new value, $30,600. In negative number, a swing of $75,000. In the notes column, Derek had typed prior period adjustment, FY22 overpayment correction. I sat there, staring at my laptop screen, the light from the TV flickering blue in the dark living room. My first instinct was rage, hot, immediate, the kind that makes your vision narrow and your hands shake and your jaw clench so tight you can hear your teeth grinding. But I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't wake Emma up to tell her what I'd just seen. Instead, I took a breath, set the laptop down, picked it back up, and started documenting. I took screenshots, full screen captures, showing the version history with timestamps, close-ups of the cell changes, the notes field with Derek's explanation. I exported the file metadata, username, IP address, exact timestamp, down to the second. I saved both versions of the file to my personal drive, created a folder labeled March 2024 Evidence, saved everything there, then backed it up to 3 different locations. I checked the vendor payment system because if Derek had stolen from my bonus, the money had to go somewhere. And there it was, on March 8th at 10:22 p.m. Derek had accessed the vendor management system. He'd created a new vendor, company name, Strategic Advisory Group LLC business type, consulting services, payment terms, net 30, bank account, a routing number, an account number I didn't recognize. At 11:03 p.m., an hour after creating the vendor, Derek had created a payment request. Amount $74,800 description, Q1 strategic planning, consulting, invoice, SEGI 2024-001, approver, Derek Patel. He'd approved his own payment request. The payment was scheduled to process on March 11th, 3 days from now. I sat back, closed my eyes, breathed. Derek hadn't made a mistake. Derek hadn't confused my bonus with someone else's. Derek had executed a plan. Step 1, create a fake vendor. Step 2, cut my bonus to create the cash. Step 3, route the cash to the fake vendor. Step 4, approve the payment to himself. It was embezzlement. Clean, premeditated, traceable. And he'd done it thinking that I would never see it, thinking that I'd just accept the prior period adjustment, without question, thinking that $75,000 would slip through the cracks of a $12 million bonus pool without anyone noticing. What Derek didn't understand was that I'd built the system specifically to prevent people like him from doing exactly this. Every action was logged. Every change was tracked. Every payment left a paper trail from the request to the approval to the bank transfer. I had everything. The full paper trail, time-stamped, immutable, sitting in my laptop. I closed the laptop, went back to the couch. Emma was asleep, her head on a pillow, the TV still playing. I turned it off, sat in the dark, and thought about what came next. The next morning, Friday, March 9th, the bonus announcements went live at 9 a.m. I got the email same as everyone else. Compensation 2024 bonuses. Approved for distribution. I watched my email inbox explode. People replying, all with thank yous. Gifs of people celebrating. Someone started a Slack thread posting pictures of what they were going to buy with their bonuses. The engineering floor erupted. I could hear it from the 14th floor. Cheering, music. Someone brought in donuts from the place down the street that always has a 40-minute line. I sat at my desk, didn't open the bonus file, didn't check my amount, just waited. At 10:15 a.m., I got a calendar invite. Compensation review, Marcus Chen. Scheduled for 11 a.m. Location, conference room, 14B. Attendees, Derek Patel, Miranda Voss, HR. I didn't open the details, just accepted it. Marked myself as attending. At 10:58 a.m., I stood up, grabbed my laptop, walked down the hall to conference room 14B. The room was small, 6-person capacity, glass walls, a table that always wobbled because one of the legs was shorter than the others. Derek was already there, sitting at the head of the table, looking relaxed, confident. He was wearing a navy suit, light blue shirt, no tie. His hair was perfect. His Rolex caught the light. Miranda sat to his left, a manila folder in front of her, her expression professionally neutral. "Marcus," Derek said, smiling. "Thanks for joining us. Have a seat." I sat down across from him, set my laptop on the table, didn't open it, just folded my hands. "So," Derek said, leaning back in his chair, "I wanted to talk to you about your bonus." "Okay," I said. "There's been an adjustment." He slid a printout across the table. It was a PDF of the bonus summary. My name at the top. Base salary, $230,000. Target bonus, 18%. Calculated amount, $33,600. A negative number, printed in black and white. Official. "As you can see," Derek continued, his voice smooth, "we discovered an overpayment from a previous period, fiscal year 2022. It's being corrected against this year's bonus." I looked at the paper, didn't touch it, just looked. 75,000, I said. Derek blinked. "Sorry, the adjustment. It's $75,000, from 41,000 positive to 33,000 negative. That's a $75,000 swing." Derek's smile tightened slightly. "Right, that's correct. It's an overpayment correction." "What overpayment?" I asked. Miranda jumped in, her voice professionally smooth. "During the fiscal year 2022 audit, we flagged a payroll discrepancy. You received a duplicate payment in June of that year. We should have caught it sooner, but it fell through the cracks. We're correcting it now." I looked at her, then at Derek. "I'd like to see the documentation," I said. Derek's smile froze. "Documentation. The audit report," I said calmly. "The payroll records showing the duplicate payment. The calculations showing how you arrived at 75,000. There was a pause, long enough to be uncomfortable. Miranda glanced at Derek. Derek glanced at the folder in front of Miranda. "We can get you that," Miranda said, recovering. "But Marcus, we need to close payroll today. It's a hard deadline. The system locks at 5 p.m. If you could just sign the acknowledgement now. We'll get you the backup documentation early next week." She slid another piece of paper across the table, a standard acknowledgement form, printed on company letterhead. "I, Marcus Chen, acknowledge that I received an overpayment of $75,000 in fiscal year 2022, and I agree to the adjustment of my fiscal year 2024 bonus to correct this error. I waive any right to dispute this adjustment." There was a signature line at the bottom. I looked at the paper, read it again, then looked at Derek. "And if I don't sign?" I asked. Derek's smile vanished. His voice hardened. "Then we can't close payroll, and that creates significant operational complications. For everyone, complications." I repeated. "Look, Marcus," Derek said, leaning forward. His tone shifted, more aggressive, less friendly. "I get it. It's not fun. Nobody likes getting docked 75 grand. But this is a system error. It happens. The faster we resolve it, the faster We all move on. I set the paper down. I'm not signing, I said. The air in the room changed. Derek's jaw clenched. This isn't optional. Marcus, this is a correction. It's happening whether you sign or not. Then you don't need my signature, I said. I stood up, picked up my laptop, turned toward the door. Marcus, Miranda said, her voice rising slightly. If you leave without signing, we'll have to escalate this to the CFO. And trust me, you don't want that kind of attention. I paused at the door, looked back at her, then escalate it, I said. I walked out. But here's the thing Derek didn't know. Here's the thing nobody in that room knew. I wasn't just refusing to sign out of pride. I wasn't just standing my ground because I was angry. I was refusing because I'd already done the math. There was no overpayment in 2022. I'd pulled my own payroll records the night before. Every paycheck, every bonus, every equity grant, all of it matched perfectly. Down to the cent. There was no duplicate payment. There was no error. There was only Derek and the fake vendor and the $74,800 he was trying to steal. And I had proof. Every log, every timestamp, every file change, all of it sitting on my laptop. All of it backed up in 3 locations. All of it waiting. That night, I didn't go back to my desk. I worked from home. Told Derek I wasn't feeling well. He didn't push back. At 7:30 p.m., I made a phone call. Not to Derek, not to HR, not even to the CFO. I called the General Counsel's office, asked for the Deputy General Counsel, left a message. This is Marcus Chen, Senior Financial Systems Architect. I need to report a potential fraud issue. It's urgent. Please call me back. I got a call back at 8:15 p.m. Marcus, this is Nolan Park. I'm Deputy General Counsel. You said this was about potential fraud. I explained the situation, calmly, methodically, the bonus adjustment, the fake vendor, the payment approval, the timeline. Do you have documentation? Nolan asked. I have everything, I said. Version history showing the file changes, database logs showing the vendor creation, payment approval records, all of it time-stamped, all of it tied to specific user accounts. There was a long silence. Don't delete anything, Nolan said finally. Don't talk to anyone about this. Not Derek, not HR, nobody. I'm escalating this to the CFO and to our internal audit team. You'll hear from us by end of day tomorrow. Understood, I said. I hung up, made myself dinner, watched TV with Emma, went to bed, slept better than I had in weeks. Saturday, nothing. Sunday morning, I got an email from the CFO. Subject urgent. Meeting required. Marcus, need you to come into the office today. 2 p.m. Executive conference room. 16th floor. This is about the issue you raised with legal. Don't discuss with anyone, I replied. I'll be there. At 1:55 p.m., I walked into the Zenith building, took the elevator to the 16th floor, the executive floor, where I'd been maybe 3 times in 14 years. The carpet was nicer up here. The art on the walls was real, not the mass-produced prints we had on the lower floors. Everything smelled expensive. I was led to the executive conference room. The CFO was there. Thomas Whitmore, late 50s, gray hair, expensive suit that actually fit. Nolan Park from legal, mid-40s, sharp eyes, taking notes on a legal pad. 2 people from internal audit I'd never met. 1 man, 1 woman. Both looked serious. And Derek was sitting at the far end of the table. His suit looked the same. His Rolex was still there. But something in his posture had collapsed. His shoulders were hunched. His hands were clasped in front of him. He wasn't smiling. "Marcus," Thomas said, standing. "Thank you for coming in on a weekend. I know this is unusual. Have a seat." I sat. Thomas gestured to Nolan. "Marcus, you've met Nolan. This is Patricia Chen and David Rodriguez from our internal audit team. We've spent the last 18 hours reviewing the information you provided. We need you to walk us through what you found." Nolan slid a laptop across the table to me. "Can you show us?" I opened the laptop, logged into the shared drive, pulled up the compensation file. "This is the bonus file for 2024, I said. "On March 8th, at 11:41 p.m., Derek accessed this file and made 13 changes. I showed them the version history, pointed to Derek's username, the timestamp, the IP address. 12 of these changes were minor, rounding adjustments, but this one, row 83, was different. I showed them my row, the change from positive 41,000 to negative 33,000. He changed my bonus from a positive number to a negative number, a $75,000 swing. In the notes, he claimed it was a prior period adjustment, an overpayment from fiscal year 2022. I pulled up my payroll records. This is my complete payroll history. Every payment from 2022 is documented. There was no overpayment, no duplicate payment, no error. Patricia, from audit, leaned forward. "So why did he make the change?" I switched screens, pulled up the vendor management system. At 10:22 p.m. on March 8th, Derek created a new vendor, Strategic Advisory Group, LLC, Consulting Services. Then at 11:03 p.m., he created a payment request to that vendor, $74,800, approved by himself. I showed them the payment record, the bank account information, the approval signature. David from audit was typing on his own laptop. "Strategic Advisory Group," he muttered. "Incorporated 6 days ago. Delaware LLC. Registered agent service. Bank account opened 3 days ago." He turned his laptop around, showed the corporate filing. The address listed for the LLC was an apartment building. "That's Derek's home address," David said. The room went silent. Thomas looked at Derek. "Derek, do you have an explanation for this?" Derek opened his mouth, closed it. His hands were shaking slightly. He started, stopped. "There was a budgeting issue. I was trying to correct an accounting discrepancy by creating a fake vendor and routing company funds to your personal account," Nolan asked. "It's not a fake vendor," Derek said, his voice rising slightly. "It's a legitimate consulting fee for advisory work I did on the side." "Consulting work for Zenith?" Thomas asked. "No, personal consulting. But I used company systems to process it because you were embezzling," Nolan said flatly. Derek went pale. Thomas leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, opened them. "Derek, as of this moment, you are suspended without pay, pending the outcome of a full internal investigation. You are barred from accessing any company systems. You are barred from entering this building. Security will escort you out. If we determine that criminal charges are warranted, we will refer this to law enforcement. Do you understand?" Derek didn't respond, just sat there. "Do you understand?" Thomas repeated. "Yes," Derek whispered. Thomas nodded to someone I hadn't noticed standing by the door, a security guard. "Please escort Mr. Patel out of the building. Make sure he returns his badge, laptop, and phone." Derek stood, walked toward the door, stopped, looked at me. I looked back. Didn't say anything. Just watched. He left. Thomas turned to me. Marcus, I owe you an apology. This should never have happened. The fact that it did represents a failure of our controls, our oversight, and our leadership. Yes, I said. It does. He nodded. We're going to make this right. Your bonus will be corrected immediately. We're also going to conduct a full forensic audit of Derek's activities over the past 18 months. Good, I said. Patricia from Audit spoke up. Marcus, we're going to need your help with the audit. You built these systems. You understand the logging infrastructure better than anyone. Would you be willing to assist? Of course, I said. The audit took 3 weeks. I worked directly with the audit team. We went through every transaction Derek had touched, every vendor payment he'd approved, every expense report he'd submitted, every budget adjustment he'd made. We found 2 other instances of fraud. In November, Derek had created another fake vendor, Operational Consulting Partners, a Delaware LLC. Just like Strategic Advisory Group, same registered agent service, different bank account, but same pattern. He'd approved 3 payments to this vendor. $12,000 in November, $15,000 in December, $11,000 in January. Total, $38,000. The invoices were fake. Generic descriptions. Strategic planning services. Operational assessment. Leadership consulting. None of it real. All of it approved by Derek himself, routing company funds to accounts he controlled. In January, we found something else. An expense report, submitted by Derek, approved by Derek's boss, the CFO, who hadn't looked at it closely. Client dinner, TechCrunch, Disrupt sponsor meeting, restaurant Michael Mina, amount $420. The audit team called the restaurant. No reservation under that name on that date. No credit card transaction matching the receipt. Derek had doctored it, taken a receipt from a different dinner, changed the date in Photoshop, submitted it for reimbursement. $420. Pocket change compared to the vendor fraud. But it showed the pattern, the mindset. Derek hadn't just made one mistake. He'd built a system for stealing. Total theft across all 3 schemes, $163,200. On April 2nd, I sat in a conference room with Thomas, Nolan, and the FBI. Agent Rebecca Torres was about 40. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. She'd spent the last 2 hours reviewing our findings. This is solid, she said, closing her laptop. The documentation is exceptional. The paper trail is clean. Mr. Patel made this very easy for us. So what happens now? Thomas asked. We file federal charges, Torres said. Wire fraud. Primarily, using interstate electronic communications to execute a scheme to defraud. Each instance is a separate count. Given the amounts in the premeditation, we're looking at significant exposure. How significant? I asked. Wire fraud carries up to 20 years per count, Torres said. Realistically, with a plea deal, he's looking at 18 to 36 months. Restitution, fines, permanent record. She looked at me. You did good work here. Most fraud like this goes undetected until the amounts get much larger. I built the systems to detect it, I said. I just never thought I'd be the target. Torres nodded. That's usually how it works. The best thieves steal from the people who trust them most. On April 2nd, the company filed a criminal complaint with the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. On April 9th, Derek was arrested. The charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, falsifying business records. Federal charges followed 2 weeks later from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Wire fraud carries up to 20 years. Derek's LinkedIn profile went dark. His lawyer released a statement saying he was cooperating with authorities. Last I heard, he was negotiating a plea deal. As for me, on April 12th, Thomas called me into his office. "Marcus," he said, "I want to offer you Derek's position. Vice President of Financial Operations. 30% raise, equity grant, seat on the executive leadership team." I sat there, thought about it, looked at Thomas. "Can I be honest?" I asked. "Please." "The system that allowed Derek to do this is still broken," I said. "He had too much access, too much unilateral approval authority, no meaningful oversight. And it took me reporting it to legal for anyone to notice." Thomas nodded slowly. "You're right. So before I accept any position, I need to know if you're serious about fixing the system, or if this is just PR damage control." "What would fixing it look like?" Thomas asked. "Segregation of duties," I said. "No one person should be able to create a vendor and approve a payment to that vendor. Audit triggers for unusual patterns, real-time monitoring, independent review of all executive-level transactions, and most importantly, a culture where people feel safe reporting problems without fear of retaliation." Thomas was quiet for a moment. "You're right," he said again. "Will you help us build that?" I thought about it, thought about staying, thought about fixing the system from the inside. And I realized something. I didn't want to. Not because I was bitter, not because I didn't believe Thomas was sincere, but because I'd spent 14 years building systems for a company that only valued those systems when they prevented a headline. "No," I said, "but thank you." I gave my notice 2 weeks later. I had 3 job offers within a month. I took a position at a smaller company, Series B startup, 200 employees, building accounting software. Ironically, better culture, better transparency, better systems, and a team that understood that building strong controls wasn't about distrust. It was about trust, the kind of trust that comes from knowing everyone is playing by the same rules. The last time I saw Derek was April 9th, the day he was arrested. I was leaving the building at 6 p.m., walked past the security desk, saw the commotion in the parking garage through the windows. 2 SFPD officers, 1 FBI agent, Derek in handcuffs. He saw me through the window. I saw him. I didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just kept walking, got in my car, drove home, had dinner with Emma, told her I'd accepted the new job. She smiled. "Good," she said. "You deserve better than that place." And you know what? She was right. Thanks for sticking around through this one. If you believe in building systems that actually catch the cheaters instead of protecting them, hit that subscribe button. Because the next story I'm going to tell you, it's about what happens when a CEO's daughter fires you for not being a culture fit, and then discovers you're the only person who knows the password to the company's main product database, and how 3 days without that password cost them $14 million in lost contracts. But that's next time. Talk soon.